when you have a young quarterback, it's not now or never. They're going to be contenders for years, as long as these big contracts don't backfire with injuries. Like that, you'll have guys. You're investing in guys to play well. They will, because you've seen that talent and you have the culture to keep them in line, and not just all of a sudden low fit. There's still a lot of good stuff coming. I think this team is still going to go on a run. I think they're still going to win the NFC. But like you said, the Lions had that feisty attitude that the Niners are going to have to rev up and get.
Ooh, before we get going with Cam Inman, I got to tell you we're sponsored by Puesto, Mexican Artisan Kitchen. There's 2 locations in Levi Stadium. So if you're going to the 49er game against the Cardinals on Sunday, this meal is decided. Go there first thing you get into the stadium, you're going there. You're hungry during the game, you're going there. You're hungry after the game, you're going to Puesto. The Adler brothers, they're big Niner fans. So imagine their joy when they could take this award-winning, incredible restaurant, Guy Haberman, massive stamp of approval inside Levi Stadium. That's what they did. Everything is so fresh. No one's making tortillas in the stadium, in any stadium, like these guys are. You get the margarita, it's going to have the fresh strawberries in there. It's going to have the fresh lime juice in there. There just is nothing else like it. And you go to the restaurants, and then you got the full menu. You get the filet mignon tacos at the stadium, by the way. You got the short rib quesadilla tacos at the stadium, which are my personal favorite. So if you're going to the stadium, you want Puesto. Puesto, thanks for the support. All right, let's get on to Cam Inman. Great to have, he's borderline becoming a regular, and I'm glad that he has something to sell today. Otherwise, I'd have to pay him for being here again. He is still, this is my favorite way of introducing Cam Inman, celebrating his silver jubilee anniversary, his 25th year, covering the 49ers. His new book, you can scan the QR code if you're watching or click a link in the description. The Franchise is now available wherever you get your books. I got mine. I'm holding it here. And he's got a book signing coming up on Saturday. What?
Saturday. I'm pointing to the book. Yeah.
Oh.
Saturday in Fremont. We had a book signing last Saturday and here in downtown Pleasanton. And next Saturday, or this coming Saturday, will be at Banter Books in downtown Fremont. So 7 o'clock, you have to pre-register for this one. Last Saturdays, they provided beer and happy hour hors d'oeuvres. I don't know. I think this time it just might be me talking and hawking a book here. So
it's beer and hors d'oeuvres is a good way to fill a room.
Well, I mean, they filled up the bookshop and they sold out of my book last Saturday. So it seemed to be a winning ingredient. So
I've already been reading through it. Jim Tomsula gets a chapter. I know everyone was waiting to find out if Jim Tomsula gets it. Jauan Jennings did not.
Hey, listen,
where is Jauan Jennings?
So during my book signing, somebody said, what was the lowest point of covering the 49ers for the last 25 years? And so the Tomsula year came up, the Chip Kelly year came up, and I think I ended up going back to probably Dennis Erickson's second year when they gutted the team and there was really nothing to watch. And then that's what set the stage for a 2-14 season to Mike Nolan to Alex Smith kind of stuff. So I think that's when it kind of bottomed out because the ownership transition was still rocky. And after the Harbaugh era, everything was just kind of spinning out of control thanks to Balky. Hey, look at that, folks. How do they do a QR code if they're watching this on their phone?
Yeah, you need somebody else's phone. But there's a link in the description.
Take a minute, take your spouse's phone, tell them you're not checking the text messages like that they've been getting secretly, and just take a quick snapshot and download that book.
Yeah. Well, this is a link to the Amazon. I hope that's okay.
They can go to caminman.com also for it.
Caminman.com. And I'll put a link in the description of the podcast and the video for Banter Bookshop.
All right. That's enough selling. What do we want to talk about?
Okay. Well, I'm wondering, Jauan Jennings didn't make the chapter on 7th round picks in this book.
That is going to be the second edition. There will be an 11th chapter of a new legend among the 49ers.
How about this guy? Huh?
You know what? Today, I saw something today that Jauan Jennings, he caught this Hail Mary from Josh Dobbs at Tennessee on this date, whatever was it, 8 years ago against Georgia. And here he was, contact courage, going high up in the air to get a contested ball on a Hail Mary. And he's still doing it to this day. And it's made him a multimillionaire. It just hasn't made him a $30 million a year millionaire like Brandon Aiyuk. But that's neither here nor there. He's doing his part. And it's been, I think everybody's enjoyed watching Jauan the last few years because the dude's very infectious in terms of his energy and enthusiasm for physical football, which I think is what people still enjoy. There's not much physicality left in football, and Jauan Jennings, George Kittle, Trent Williams kind of bring that out. Fred Warner, Bosa, yep, all of them. So,
yeah, it's made me wonder. I had kind of put him in a box of what he is, which is a number 3 receiver, you know. And it's hard to break out of that box if you're not a fast guy or if you're not an ultra possession guy.
right.
He already has more catches than he had all of last regular season, not counting the postseason. He's closing in on that number. He already has more touchdowns than he had last year. So is there another level to Jauan Jennings that I don't know how you felt about it? I thought, hey, this is an incredible success for a 7th round pick. You've kind of seen what you're going to get out of him. There's not another level to him, but did I underestimate him?
I get the question every week from people, should I pick him up for my fantasy football team? And I just revert to, well, who else is around him? He thrived in LA because Debo and Kittle were not playing, right? I mean, you could say that. It's just he became the great target for Purdy. And Brandon Aiyuk's drawing coverage. And so obviously Jauan Jennings is going to get open, or they're going to call plays for him. I don't know if we underestimated it. I think a lot of this is predicated on how the defense is playing Aiyuk and how they're anticipating Purdy's underneath short routes to Jauan are open. And I think Brock's the guy that relies a lot on trust. And I think Jauan Jennings has earned a lot of that trust. Kittle had a lot of that trust, right? I mean, heck, you saw that on the touchdown pass to Kittle the other day. He throws into triple coverage, just throws it up to the man and knows that Kittle's got 5 inches on it, all 3 of those cornerbacks that are trying to cover him. So do we underestimate? I guess we underestimated him. Everybody did. He was a 7th round pick. But he sure is fun to watch, and you hope it keeps going. And at the same time, it's opened this little door where everybody can just pile on Brandon Aiyuk even more. It's month after month. Let's destroy Brandon Aiyuk. And it's like, look, if Brandon Aiyuk was playing really bad, he wouldn't be on the field, and he's still getting more snaps than any other wide receiver.
You posted this on Twitter. Brandon Aiyuk is the only receiver to have an average cushion of under 3 yards in week 4. His average cushion was 2.4. He averaged 1.9 yards of separation, tied for 11th lowest on his 5 targets. Despite this, his 17.7 average targeted air yards mark was 4th highest.
God, I hate stats. Well, like, you know what? There's a great stat company. It's a Next Gen Stats or Zebra Technologies that measure all that stuff, which is awesome, right? So you can interpret it how you want. But I'm so much more into the body language and what you do with those numbers. And it's like, you know, he doesn't have a lot of receptions this year, but he's got a couple 3rd down conversions, and the second catch he made, he caught Purdy's first throw Sunday against Patriots, like a 35-yarder, like crossing route, which was great. It was wide open. But the second one that he caught was contested. Was it like low and he dove?
It was a low 3rd down.
Yeah. That he got up, and the fastest I'd seen him run in about 3 years, he sprinted about 20 yards to make sure everybody saw who he was, which is just weird. It's like Brandon's all of a sudden becoming, I need people to pay attention to me. I'm going to wear red baggy shorts to practice. I'm going to sprint after the play's over. He's still a really good wide receiver. He's not going anywhere. It's like, I don't mean to continue on here, but I think I got questions today. Go, look, if the Raiders are trading Devontae Adams, can they just swap him for Brandon Aiyuk? And it's just like, I'm sure you can do anything you want, but there's a financial aspect to it where it's so cost prohibitive to do something like that. The guy just got his contract extension a month ago, and it would take such a huge hit financially, and I don't think the Raiders would have as equal of a hit. And you know, the Niners aren't in a situation where they can just throw away like a huge chunk of salary cap space.
All right, let's put all that aside for a second. Go back to the first thing you said, or one of the things you said, which is he's not going anywhere. Okay. Right. So that aside, like what is I think there's this debate right now of like, is something going on? Or, you know, it's before he got paid, there would be 3-game stretches where you're like, oh, where's Aiyuk's got like 3 targets, right? Aiyuk doesn't. And then you'd look up at the end of the year and he'd be, you know, a top 10 NFL receiver. Yeah. So is something going on? Is something you're talking about him like you think something's different with him?
It just doesn't seem that it's clicked back into place from last year, that there's still water over the bridge. Like that's not water under the bridge from all the offseason issues. And I'm having a hard time writing it off, saying he's not doing anything good. Sorry, we still have a landline. Who knew? And I think that people are so much scrutiny on Brandon Aiyuk right now that we're just waiting for him to bust out. And it's like, we're waiting for everything of the offense to unlock, and it's not unlocking until Christian McCaffrey's back in it seems, because Purdy's having a sensational year. Jauan Jennings having a great year. Kittle's there. Debo's back. And everybody's going, well, what about Aiyuk? What about Aiyuk? Well, it's like, I don't think he's terrible. He's not Ronnie Bell dropping 40-yard passes with the game on the line. So I think it's just a matter of it's early in the season, and he's kind of getting back in the flow of things. But at the same time, I think you do have to kind of keep an eye on his demeanor, the interactions with teammates. Is he the same Brandon Aiyuk? I think he is. I mean, I can talk to him in the locker room. Like, it seems like nothing's changed over the last few years. Like, this is like when the cameras are off, and he seems like the regular kind of laid back guy. He's not trying to strut around and peacock himself. So, but it's to be determined. It's
just weird. And to your point, like, there's things you can.
Been weird. Yeah.
The whole thing's been weird. Somebody pointed out to me, and it's a good point. Like, well, if Christian McCaffrey practices really hard all the time, Fred Warner practices. Those guys act like practice matters. So if you have a player who doesn't practice, shouldn't it also affect that player in a negative way, which is Brandon Ayuk's situation?
Well, yeah, but who's saying he's not practicing hard?
Well, it's not that he's not practicing hard; it's that he was not on the field with the team for an extended stretch of time. Yeah.
Right. But I think now he's back in the groove of it. I mean, Greg Papa, who's allowed to watch practice, because us media scoundrels are kicked out after about 5 minutes of taking roll. Papa said last week he was doing great. He was all over the place and had one of his better weeks of practices, which to me is always the curse of any team. Anytime a team, like where a coach says, we had the best week of practice this week, and they always end up losing or just doing something bad. Niners didn't lose because they played a really bad team. And this week should be fun because they're back in divisional play, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is coming into town with Kyler Murray, who you never know if you're getting a really good Kyler Murray or a bad one. And then the Cardinals can beat the Rams by 30 and lose to the Commanders by 30. So who knows? But the Niners better win that game.
Yeah. Kyler, just like Russell Wilson before him, has always kind of struck some level of fear, I think. The Niners, a lot has changed, and they've had a lot of success. Mobile quarterbacks, as they are for a lot of teams, are just really dangerous. And for this group, I don't think you should at least look at the Patriots game like, okay, it's all been solved on defense. There were some good things that happened. Bosa 9 pressures. Renardo Green
kind of showed up.
Fred
Warner was all-world Warner.
So. Yeah, I mean, as long as he can play.
I think the most encouraging thing about that defense, and this could help going against Kyler Murray, is they didn't have Javon Hargrave, and everybody's like, and then you lose Jordan Elliott early, but they still got great defensive interior push against, very highly suspect offensive linemen, because the Patriots lost their center right away. So let's not all go pat them on the back. But Bosa did have a pretty good game, and the Cardinals are not known to have a beacon of an offensive line, a great line. So, and Kyler Murray's a guy that's going to escape the pressure anyhow. So it's really, this is going to be a matter of how good are these cornerbacks? Are they going to be able to stick around with Marvin Harrison Jr.? And, probably the most confident guy in that locker room right now that likes to talk is Deommodore Lenoir. And I asked him after the last game, and I go, all right, let's just cut to the next one. Marvin Harrison Jr. is like, the new guy. I've been waiting for this. I like him. And I'm like, cool. So it's like he's ready to take it on.
Yeah.
And Mooney Ward is, because he's still looking to get an interception and get back on the radar and get paid. So this is going to be a good test for them.
Yeah, a good test, an important game. Tom Brady's back. All right, that's good for Brock Purdy.
Is he going to have us hang out? He's a media member now, and we're Bay Area media guys. He should hang out with us and I got a ring. I got one. So
I can't. I did hear where they're having dinner on Saturday night. I have heard, but
really, is it going to be?
yeah.
Can you share whether it's San Francisco or are we talking the peninsula?
It's not San Francisco. Private room. You're not going to be able to see him anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for him. He should. You know what? This is baloney. He should be having everybody over at Tom Brady Sr.'s house for a nice backyard barbecue. He is home. Let's get back to the house, the childhood home of Tom Brady. Everybody's invited.
Play around at Pebble. I mean, he was there. He did the preseason game, right? He did a practice game during the preseason at Levi Stadium.
He's having dinner at the tap room?
I did not.
Because I'd be game for that. We could write that off, right? And just go down there.
Yeah, just cruise on. Say 2:00 tea time, Brady.
Yes.
But yeah, it does feel like a big test for them. I thought last week what was significant was, they had they've had all these just issues, and then McCaffrey's not around, and then Devondre Campbell acts surprised that D Winters is taking some of his snaps. I'm like, well, that's not great. That's not good vibes. And I just wanted to see, what did they look like? And I thought getting Kittle and getting Debo back just made them look like, say what you want about the Lions issues and going back and forth in this game with Seattle. The Lions look to me like the young 49ers look, where they just have badass dudes.
There was a ferocity and energy that we are such better dudes than these guys, where it's the Niners hey, we know we're really good. We're going to figure it out. Just bear with us for a minute. Bear with us for a few games. Look, we all got paid now. We're going to do okay. And it's like Lions, they were hungry going after them. And, I mean, you better have that energy against Cardinals because, you had that kind of at the start against the Rams. And then it's just okay, they're up big on the Rams. And then they just kind of coasted and that didn't work. There were so many mistakes. I think the thing that struck me more than anything at the start, this, as we approach the quarter pole of this season, is the Niners sure make a lot of mistakes, and that cost them in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. It wasn't just the jet chip wasp like in the previous Super Bowl. There was 10, 15 mistakes that backfired on them. And in the Rams game, it was the same thing. And I'll tell you, man, this special teams unit, just every week, it's just how are they going to mess this up next? And it's they have the worst ranked special teams through 4 weeks for a good reason, because there's coverage breakdowns, there's punt issues, whether coverage or getting it blocked or a returner fumbling. It's they got to figure this out. And I was looking at special teams last week in practice, and I'm I've covered this team for so long, and special teams is usually the time you can take a break and go find Guy Haberman on the sideline and chat him up. And it's no, this time I'm going to actually watch.
Because Guy's not paying attention.
Right. And well, even John and Kyle were paying attention to special teams last week.
Oh, wow. That actually is a thing.
Yeah. So it is. It's something.
All right. Let's talk about Brock Purdy. One big question for you. I think the overarching question on Brock Purdy is just, is he an improving player? There are a lot of metrics right now. He's second in the league in passing. I think one thing that's interesting with him is his time to throw is high. One thing that's been great about him is the ball comes out so fast. Well, now it's over 3 seconds, which is long, which sometimes is a bad sign. It means a player isn't processing. But anyone that's watching him knows that's not what's happening here. He's throwing the ball down the field more. And I will say, for people, I know there's been some talk about that time to throw stat. That stat gets inflated when you are a play action team, and the Niners are a play action team. So that's part of what happens with that stat. But anyway, one big question is Brock Purdy, do you see areas where he's a better player this year?
Yeah, I think he's a better player all around for the most part. But I think that time to throw stat's very misleading, because it's, somebody just got past Colton McKivitz and Dominic Pooney again, so I got to do a magical escape and buy myself an extra second. So he's running around more, and he's scrambling more because it's out of necessity. But he's well aware of it. After the Super Bowl, we were saying, what do you want to work on this offseason? One of his aspects was mobility. And to me, that meant, not like he was going to do the zone read, but it was, I need to be using my legs and escaping and being able to buy time, You know what I mean? So he's bought that time through 4 weeks. So I think that's boom. There's one aspect that he's gotten better. The completion percentage last game was his second worst as a starter, but he was also taking some shots downfield. And as that game kind of was deteriorating in the second half, just didn't seem like there were any like pressure throws that he had to like nail on the money. But watching him scramble and run, I mean, he's done that ever since he got in. Remember, was it the first? Was it probably the first start against Tampa Bay? He went diving to the sideline and landed the football on his ribs, and he hurt his ribs. So he went into Seattle, and we weren't sure whether he was going to play. And then you saw in the NFC Championship game against Detroit, he scrambled for that like really critical third down conversion into the red zone. And so, last game, it's like, hey, he's doing that again. It's not a new concept, but he just kind of seems to grasp, well, the defense is playing back, so I got all this room and I'm going to go. And it's just like, cool, do that. Just make sure you don't put yourself in harm's way and know how to slide or get out of bounds. And you don't have to always go Superman, diving head first and putting those ribs at risk once again.
I've come to believe, and I said this it hit me on Sunday watching him, that part of the reason he's an effective runner is because he doesn't leave the pocket early. As someone who watches a lot of college football, it's an epidemic. Quarterback, and it's hard. Like, I don't blame guys. It's scary in there. But because he doesn't leave early, now guys are in scramble drill. Receivers are running down the field. Yeah. He leaves to space. He doesn't leave to leave. He leaves to the space.
Yeah.
And so often you see him break the pocket, Cam, and it's clear like there's 7 yards just right there on a platter for him. But I think it's because he's patient that it happens.
Well, and this is something Steve Young forever has talked about, where he had to learn to be a pocket passer and not just take off running. And you see that's expedited with Brock, I think, already, where it's like, yeah, I can run, but I'm not the fastest person, so I'm not going to be. He's like, I'm not Lamar Jackson, and that's kind of the best thing about Brock is his self-awareness. Is he knows what he can do and what he doesn't need to do. So that's always been an effect with the supporting cast, and now I think without McCaffrey, this has really changed their offense, and because it's how the defense is playing them. And you don't have to have that threat of McCaffrey catching the ball on third downs. Mason's made a couple nice catches here the last couple of weeks, but the lack of McCaffrey is because we always thought McCaffrey and Debo were interchangeable, and like Debo was the pre-McCaffrey for this offense. Well, McCaffrey's not around. I don't see Debo doing that. It's like, yeah, they started him at running back on Sunday, which was okay. All right, here we go. But he only had 2 carries. So, and the first carry was like 8 yards, and it was really well blocked, like 2 double tight end blocks he was following. But Debo as a running back is not like the 2021 wide back Debo. So like defenses are kind of attuned to that. And I just think Kyle Shanahan, I have a hard time like criticizing play calls because I don't exactly know X's and O's. Well, I don't know any X's and O's, but I know that it just hasn't seemed as creative as it did his first few years. And when you don't have McCaffrey, it's like, are we just doing nuts and bolts here? Just, pitch left, follow Trent Williams, okay, here, we're going to run a delayed draw up the middle. And at the same time, it's like, you don't need to show that against New England Patriots. You're going to blast them. So you got 2 divisional games here, Arizona and Seattle. And so you also have to watch out, make sure this isn't a trap game. They're looking ahead to the short turnaround of going up to Seattle.
Do you think he's relying on his quarterback more than he has before? Could that be an explanation?
I think he trusts his quarterback more than he's ever trusted a quarterback. Maybe I guess you could go back to Matt Ryan. I had Jerry McDonald, my great colleague, look up that we were driving into the Levi's last week, and I said, Brock's been the quarterback. This is like his 25th start or something like that. And I go, where does that rank among Shanahan quarterbacks? Because there was a time where he's kind of gone through them pretty fast, And Garoppolo is still in the lead by, I think Garoppolo, I'm going to guess around 48, something like that.
Yeah, I think he could pass Jimmy next year.
Yeah, so it's on that track, but he trusts Brock way more than he trusts Jimmy. And because I think Brock's a much better quarterback in terms of his ability to read a defense and make the right throws wherever he needs to and get out of the pocket to avoid injury, which Jimmy just had a knack for getting hurt. And But at the same time, I think Jimmy had a pretty good leadership ability on the field where everybody liked him and gravitated towards, hey, let's all have fun and go out and win a football game. Where Brock seems like a lot more demanding of, like, yeah, I'm cool and I'll take the heat for you guys, but you better fricking do what you need to be in the right place because I know this offense, I have it down pat, so you better also.
I think he probably spends, you would know better, more time. He's young. Now, I mean, Jimmy was young and came from a place that was very demanding too, coming from New England.
Yeah.
But, everyone always kind of joked, haha, Jimmy doesn't reply to texts. Where, here's Brock. Finally, Kyle it's been years. I don't think it happened. I don't think it has happened, right? Where Kyle has had a full off season with a healthy returning starter.
Yeah, we said something like that. Well, I mean, he did in 18 because Jimmy was the starter going from 17 to 18.
Yeah, that's right. So that was the last time.
But at the same time, they gave him that money. And if you'll read in Mike Silver's new book, I believe he said that Jimmy kind of ghosted everybody after he signed. It was like, where'd our guy go? And but that was Jimmy. And Brock's the opposite. Brock's around. He's very engaged with teammates. The thing I like about Brock also is he really is a pretty good communicator, where it's like it's a two-way communication. He'll ask questions back and forth, like just walking by him or informally by the locker. It's like you can have a conversation with them. It's just he's not like on guard and afraid you're going to quote him about something, or he'll just ask like curious questions. He's always a very curious guy. And when he first got to the Niners and he was sitting at his locker, he'd study plays all the time before he go to practice. And I love guys like that. It's like they're not putting on a show for the media. They're just using every minute they can to go over and get prepared. Fred Warner was like that his first 2 years on the Niners. Would always sit at his locker and go over things. So it's those things I really watch to see which guys take their job super seriously so that they can perform great at it.
Yeah. I'm reading some of Brock from your book. And what he said when he arrived, his introductory press conference. Like you guys asked him, what makes him, what his best assets are, and maybe the craftiness I play with extending plays. I always have the mentality that I can make something out of nothing when a play breaks down. I think a lot of quarterbacks come into the league feeling that way, and then get disabused of that belief pretty quickly, right?
He said it in such a calm and self-confident, not like braggadocious way, but just when he walked out of that, because this was I don't think like big cameras were on. We were in the local media room, which is people that don't know, there's a media bunker in Levi Stadium that is windowless. It's full of painted cement blocks, and there's no real life to it. And Brock came in and he just kind of had an easygoing conversation for about 5-10 minutes. And he walked out of the room, and I remember walking by guys going, dang it, I really like that guy. He's got something to him, but we just never going to see him because Trey Lance is here and Jimmy's here. But that was kind of fun. Hopefully he's a good kid. And it's like, now look at him. He's the same guy.
Is this, all right, I'll finish with this, since you have such a great historical perspective on the book. If Brock Purdy turns into the franchise quarterback, I mean,
he is the franchise.
You know what I'm saying? Like if he's that guy for the next 8 to 10 years, right? If it continues the way it's trending.
Sure.
I mean, that's on the Mount Rushmore of the luckiest things that have ever happened to this franchise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's up there with Dwight Clark being in the right spot at the right time up in the air to catch a ball.
After being a 10th round pick.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they had needed a lot of luck for that Dwight Clark for the catch, right?
And you need there's so much that goes like when they were winning, honestly, it was either 2019 or 2012. Maybe it was 2019 because they started off hot with 8-0, right? And it seemed like every week that they were getting ready to play somebody, the opponent would lose its star player the week before. And it's like, that's convenient. The Warriors kind of the same thing in the playoffs, like when they won their last NBA championship a few years. Like when one of the stars of the opposing team would be coming in, they got hurt the week before, or the series before. So I think there's a lot of luck that goes into it, and getting Brock Purdy in the 7th round was tremendous luck. But you get him, and then it's a matter of coaching him up and providing the right structure around him. So that's not luck. That is and I ripped on this today in my mailbag. Somebody was talking about the culture of the Niners. And I go, culture is such a lazy word that people throw around in sports because they want to pretend that just kind of covers everything. But the true culture of a team is like, who are the leaders and what's the accountability aspect and what's the talent aspect? There's so many things that go into it. You can have great culture on a crappy team, but you can have bad talent. So I think that Brock is trending obviously towards superstardom, but he's going to have to win a Super Bowl in the next couple of years. Same with Shanahan, because Shanahan's in year 8. The guy, I don't know, how many years does he have left if he doesn't win a Super Bowl?
Well, does he keep going to NFC Championship games? Because if he does, he's got a long time.
Right. And I think that Yorks understand that. The ownership understands that. And I think I talked to Jed about this a couple of years ago was, John Madden, when he was coaching the Raiders, would get to the cusp, but he didn't break through, I think, until year 7 or 8 of coaching the Raiders. And there were a lot of near misses, but you knew you had a great coach there because you had a contender every year. And right now they do. I don't buy that this is what did Debo say, that it's now or never? I mean, we love to do this. It's Super Bowl or bust. Yeah. Because it really is. There's that I think just emphasizes the urgency to win now. But when you have a young quarterback, it's not now or never. They're going to be contenders for years, as long as these big contracts don't backfire with injuries. Like that, you'll have guys. You're investing in guys to play well. They will, because you've seen that talent and you have the culture to keep them in line, and not just all of a sudden low fit. So the biggest mystery in the NFL this season is what is the status of Christian McCaffrey, and nobody knows. This is for Shanahan books. Not even God knows what Christian McCaffrey will be able to do on a football field this year. But I mean, before they shut him down, I got the sense he was fine. It's like, what do we know? You see him running around out there doing the same regular drills, going, he's jogging around okay, maybe favoring something, but not too bad. And then it's like, but he knows it. Like, this is a guy that he knows his body so well because he works out and trains, and you hope he didn't overtrain coming into the year. But he is such a perfectionist and professional. He's the offensive equivalent of a Nick Bosa, where it's like every little muscle fiber, he knows like the strength of it and what goes into it. So I have a feeling that McCaffrey knows exactly what needs to get done. And so if they get him back on the field, kind of running on the side, I think that's kind of honestly what we really should be looking for this week in practice, is if McCaffrey is spotted at all running on that. And I think the more sentimental story this week, I know we're going too long, sorry, but is probably Ricky Pearsall if he comes off the non-football injury list. And if they fast track him into the lineup, because you kind of can do that now, because you've obviously said Ronnie Bell is going to be inactive, right? And after dropping that pass in LA, Chris Conley now has an oblique injury that he can play through, but maybe you don't need him to. And then Jacob Cowing, the rookie, has a shoulder issue that kept him from returning punts, and got Kyle Juszczyk another job opportunity to put on his resume as one of the all-time great fullback / punt returners / rushers / he's held, I believe, on extra points or field goals. So they'll do it all, Kyle. Who was it when we found out McCaffrey wasn't playing, and I saw somebody that works in personnel, and I said, well, Mason's looked pretty good. I go, but I don't know about Garendo. He seems to run high. And they're like, yeah, but so did Raheem Mostert. And I said, oh, that's true. So the problem is Garendo goes for no gain or he fumbles. It's not a good combination. You are not going to get the ball again by keep doing that. So
yeah,
it's another thing to watch this week.
Who running back 2 is?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to bench him for Patrick Taylor Jr., but maybe.
So they're in a weird spot, because Mason gets so much work, rightfully, but there's no safety net behind him.
I agree. And that's it. That was my mailbag question, was who would they trade for? And I said, I think probably the 2 biggest areas of concern right now are defensive tackle, because you don't have Hargrave and you don't know how hurt Elliott is, and then running back, because you need a veteran insurance depth behind it. And I'm not looking at Miami, even though Miami's stinking, right? And you have 2 ex-Niners on the team. Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. have been banged up this year, so I'm not trading a medium round pick for a guy that's been hurt.
Yeah.
You've seen time and time again, you can plug in almost any running back in the system and they will thrive. So maybe you don't have to trade for a well-established guy.
For all the bad stuff that's happened to this team this year, like there's all this good stuff that you go, how did they even end up with this? And McCaffrey's on that list as long as he's healthy.
There's still a lot of good stuff coming. I think this team is still going to go on a run. I think they're still going to win the NFC. But like you said, the Lions had that feisty attitude that the Niners are going to have to rev up and get.
Cam, thanks for making time.
Thanks for having me, Guy.
All right, everybody. It is time for my Prize Picks segment where I make picks. You can do it too. Multiple days a week I'm playing Prize Picks. Use the code GUY at Prize Picks. There's a link down in the description, or you can just go to prizepicks.com or download the app on your phone. When you make a lineup, you put in $5, you make a lineup, you will immediately get $50 into your account. Just immediate bonus. You don't have to win that lineup. A lineup is just 2 or more players, up to 7. You pick more or less on a bunch of picks. With baseball playoffs underway, you can go baseball, college football. There's a ton. I love doing the NFL. That's what we do here. So let's go. Let's make a couple of lineups and show you what I got cooking. First up, I'm going to go Thursday night football. Thursday night football with this lineup. Thursday night heavy, and then I'll do a Sunday lineup that's heavy 49ers. All right, so for Thursday night, I'm going to go Baker Mayfield more than 1.5 touchdowns. He's only thrown, he has thrown for 8 this year, so that's 2 a game. The Bucs only have 1 rushing touchdown between their 2 running backs. When they score, it's through the air. The Falcons do have a solid pass defense, but you got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin, really good red zone targets to continue to target. And so I'm going to go Baker more than 1.5 touchdowns. Bijan Robinson more than half a touchdown. Bucs have allowed 7 rushing touchdowns in their first 4 games this year. Atlanta's been mediocre in rushing success this year, 102 yards a game. That's 22nd. So, Kirk Cousins is still out there trying to find his top receiving target. But this is just Bijan Robinson, score a touchdown, receiving, rushing, either one works. That's all we need out of this game. And then I'm going to combine those 2 with Young Ho Koo, more than 7.5 kicking points. All right. I always love getting a kicker involved. It makes kicks exciting. Highly recommend getting a kicker involved. He's averaging over 8 kicking points in the last 5 games, had a 58-yarder to beat the Saints this week. Divisional short week game. These teams know each other. So expect a lot of field goal attempts for Atlanta. Falcons offense, 29th in red zone conversion, 25th in touchdowns. Not great, but we got kicking points here, more than 7.5 for Young Ho Koo. So that's a fun one. That's $20, pays $100. You can also flex play a lot of these, meaning if 2 of the 3 hit, then you win for a lower payout. I did not do that either one here, but you can do that too. I do that sometimes. All right. Next lineup. This is also 20 to win 100. All right. Code GUY, Prize Picks. Jordan Mason. We're going to go more than 85.5 rushing yards against the Cardinals. He's averaging almost 112 a game. He's 5 yards a carry. The Guerrero fumble Shanahan's trust at an all-time low. I'm sure it's always at an all-time low. Debo got a couple carries to start the game last week, but that was it. So we've got a bell cow here, right? Arizona's given up 147 yards on the ground per game. That's 28th. See, throw the ball. I think Niners can do both this week. So combine that with Brock Purdy, more than 253.5. Now, when you're picking these types of passing numbers, it's going to be tight every week. Last week, I picked more on Brock's passing number, and it hit because they hit some big plays. So I'm counting on that again. He's 3-0 against his home state as a starter. He averages 230 and 8 passing touchdowns. He has 8 passing touchdowns. He averages 234 against Arizona. But this is big play Brock now, right? He's second in the league in yards, and that's with the worst yak in the NFL. Jauan Jennings is going. Kittle is going. I think Aiyuk it's going to come for him. Brock's not afraid to take those shots. Arizona's 18th in the league in pass defense yards. So we're going Brock more. And then we're going to combine that with Sam Darnold, less than 224.5 passing yards. Vikings, Jets. Jets are second in the league in passing yards per game. The last 3 games, the Jets have only allowed on average 97 passing yards. We are in, must-win-ish territory for them after a sloppy loss to the Broncos. Revenge game for Darnold. I think maybe it's a revenge game for the Jets. I like Darnold. Sauce Gardner, you got him up against Justin Jefferson this week. At some point, this offense has to be slowed down. I think the Vikings are good. I don't think they're NFC championship winning great. So they got to lose some games at some point. I don't know if they're losing, but I think Darnold's going less than 224.5. You can use those picks if you want. Make your own. Tell me about them. Prize Picks, code GUY. Appreciate y'all very much. Thanks to Cam Inman for joining the show today. Thanks to Prize Picks. Thanks to you, really. Whether sometimes you hit me up, you're like, how can we support the show? Just hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Tell people about it. If you want to throw some money down, then, you can support a sponsor like Puesto or Prize Picks. Whatever, no obligation, but if you want to do that, do it. I think the Prize Picks, you'll have fun. I have fun with it. So Puesto's just delivers every single time. And check out the book signing. The description has the link to Cam's book event this weekend. So go check that out as well. And appreciate y'all. Talk to you later.